My name is Benji Baker. That's B-E-N-J-I. I'm here with Dr. Marion Snyder to meet with Ariel and Dr. Mark Ezekiel.
Cool. But where are y'all from, like your organization?
We're Clearwater Biotech. Okay. We're out of Greenville, South Carolina. We have a cannabis lab that specializes in hemp testing, and so, to my knowledge, we're the only ISO accredited lab in the state.
I don't know what that means. What is ISO accreditation?
ISO is an international standard, and so one of the problems we found in the industry is that there are very little to no standards. So as you cross borders from state to state, regulations change, and so there's nothing that really kind of unifies the industry as a whole. We came from the background of the clinical reference lab in the medical world, and so there's very high standards in that. Every patient that you deal with, there's a risk to that, and so the analysis and the test must be accurate. And we ultimately just transferred all of those protocols that we use in the laboratory over into the hemp testing lab.
Got it. So before hemp, what kinds, well, and I guess you guys are still doing it now, what kinds of things are you testing? When you say medical, that's kind of broad. What does that mean?
Well, our lab focuses specifically on toxicology and pharmacogenetics. So we're looking at medications in the patient's systems, from pain management to addiction. And we look at the medications that have cross-reactivity, and ultimately we help physicians with dosing on those medications. We utilize pharmacogenetics as a method to do that, and so just to better understand how the patient can metabolize those medicines.
Got it. Sun just changed. Are we still good where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she is really good at the whole medicine stuff.
In other words, he's like, don't ask me any more questions about that.
She's better at that.
No, it's fine. What you just said is perfect.
That's like broad enough.
So you said this before, you guys apply the same standards that you do to the medical aspect to the hemp plant. Why is that important?
Well, it's extremely important because how the sample is handled once it comes in the laboratory actually preserves the integrity of the sample through the entire process. Yeah. So you have to do things the same. It has to be repeatable. It needs to be redundant. So we have a very, very good, robust system with regards to the clinical lab. When we get samples, patient samples in, whether they be blood, oral fluid, any excretion that we're testing, they all get handled identically. And so when the hemp samples come in, whether they're flower, leaf, extract, concentrate, even finished formulations, we have to treat each of those just like they're a blood sample, waiting on a patient. Yeah. And so they get treated with the utmost integrity and rigor. Yeah. And that's really important because it's the beginning of where the analysis starts. Right. So the sample must be handled properly. If it's not, everything that occurs after that is erroneous. So
you get the plant from top to bottom. You're saying all different kinds of plants. And when we say you're testing it, that's kind of like a vague term too. What does that mean? Specifically,
we're looking at the cannabinoid profile. So these plants produce a number of compounds that are within that particular profile. There are a couple of reasons we want to test. Number one is we want to understand the concentration of the cannabinoids, but two, we've got a regulatory issue. So compliance levels from the federal and the state government are specifically 0.3% within the THC range. That's kind of what differentiates hemp and marijuana. So hemp has a maximum of 0.3% delta-9 THC. So from a testing perspective, our job is to help ensure that the farmer is able to harvest their product prior to reaching those non-compliant levels.
Got it. So there's a legal component.
Absolutely.
And then there's also a concentration component for people who are making CBD products.
Absolutely.
So why does testing the plant and knowing say that word again.
Cannabinoid.
I struggle with that word. Cannabinoid. Knowing the cannabinoid levels, I understand it for the legal aspect to make sure that they're not breaking the law, essentially. But for the ingestion component for a CBD product, why is knowing the cannabinoid levels important?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously quality changes based on those concentration levels. Right. So the lower the CBD concentration or cannabinoid concentration, obviously the lower the quality of the plant is. Our goal and our job and responsibility at the laboratory is to ensure that the products from the field are actually reaching the consumer with the highest level of integrity. And so knowing those concentrations are important. Also, there's a lot of data that's yet to be really documented, and that is there are a number of cannabinoids. Obviously, CBD and THC are the ones spoke about the most. However, there are a number of obscure, lesser concentrated cannabinoids that could have huge impact in health and wellness. And unfortunately, there's not enough study that's been done, and so our goal from a laboratory is to partner with folks like Dr. Ezekiel and Ariel. We understand the quality of the farming, we understand the quality of the materials that they put in the ground, the beginning of their genetics. So it's really important for us to partner with these farmers and help assess their farm and ultimately advise in areas that the science, really gives a strong foothold to.
Why are you doing this? Why did you guys want to be trailblazers in this industry in terms of testing hemp plants?
Good question. Me personally, I was born on a cotton farm in Mississippi, and so it's in my roots, it's in my blood. Went to school for engineering and have really taken an engineer's approach to the science of testing and also the farming, and I found that it works really well. And maybe my time away from the farm gave me a lot of, a lot more experience that I can bring back. Ultimately, my goal is to help drive agriculture economy in the state of South Carolina. I've seen the rural communities ultimately just dissolve, and it's a sad sight. And we've got wonderful people, fertile ground, great climate. It's only necessary that we get the right people involved and reinvigorate the agriculture economy.
So we were talking too about the connection piece, because from farm to where you can buy it in the store, there's a lot of steps in between. So you're working on kind of like a network of, I guess, farmers and processors. Talk about that.
Absolutely, thank you. We're forming really organically a coalition of farmers. It kind of fell in our lap naturally because we are the laboratory. We obviously know a lot of the farmers. We receive a lot of the material that comes in from processors, farmers, finished goods manufacturers. Because we do the testing, we're really the conduit that connects everyone, because someone that's buying wants to talk to the laboratory to understand the quality of what they're buying, and people that are selling want to ensure that the laboratory can articulately describe the characteristics of their plant. And so ultimately we really become a hub, kind of the central brain unit of the entire vertical.
Perfect. Where do you notice it is kind of like the missing link right now in terms of taking what this is and turning it into something that I, Mark Morgan, can buy at the store? Where is there industry to be had, I guess?
Well, obviously this industry is in its infancy in South Carolina, so we're seeing that growth right now. There are a number of areas that we can focus on and that we will improve in terms of process. The farming aspect is in really good shape, as you can see with this farm. Good experienced farmers with some helpful knowledge, can do this well. Ultimately, the goal is to get this moved into a processing facility, hopefully in South Carolina, that provides equivalent integrity and service as the farmer provides. From there, it goes from processing to finished goods manufacturing. We are aligned with multiple processors in the state and finished goods manufacturers, and so ultimately we have access to the folks that are buying and selling, and we're just a good resource to talk about it.
Anything that you want to say about your belief in the plant? The reason being is because from a medical standpoint, a lot of doctors don't want to touch it yet because of what you said, because there's not a lot of research on it. Do you believe in the healing properties of the plant, and if so, why?
Absolutely. Well, I've seen it work firsthand. My stepdad has Alzheimer's, and so this has really been a benefit to him in terms of stress and anxiety. Those are things that typically accelerate some of the symptoms. There is a lot of documentation, a lot of medical articles, peer-reviewed medical articles that have been published regarding benefits with any disease state, PTSD. We saw Epidiolex, the very first FDA approved drug, hit the market, and obviously seizures are
Yeah.
huge. That's kind of been the historical reason that we saw this come to market. But I think there's a number of benefits that we don't even recognize yet. And it just simply getting exposure to the medication, and I think allowing people to test it and for themselves. It's organic, it's all natural, it's plant-based, it's healthy, and we'll see over the coming years, what more benefit there is.
Perfect. That's all I needed.